where you get pine nuts from, but it takes about 20 years before you actually can harvest anything, so hopefully my grandson will enjoy that. Lots of different kinds of fruit trees. I try to go with a lot of native trees because you're going to have the least problems with native trees. They just want to grow. I have volunteer persimmons that pop up. I have volunteer hickories. I've got a hickory forest here, and also have volunteer Bradford pears. Imagine that. So they keep the Bradford pears growing very slowly, but they don't kill them. So I have to go through every so often with a broad fork and try to pull them out.
What they do, the animals do?
The animals do, yeah. So on this path, I have the electric netting, and I just make a rectangle. They're in there, and then I built a shade structure, which is two by 6 lengths with cross pieces, and then 2 cattle panels going over in an arch. So it's, I want to say it's 5 or 6 feet wide, 10 feet long, and then I tarp it. And that gives them shade, and that's the only shelter they have through the winter. So they went through the winter, last winter, where it got down in single digits. And the only problem I had was my goat doesn't like the cold weather. Anytime it gets down to 20s, she's shivering. So I buy a goat coat for her that lasts about 2 years, and I have to buy a new coat for her. And then she's fine. The sheep and the cow, and it's so funny because my cow will bed down and the goat will snuggle right up to her because cow bellies are nice and warm. The only problem I had, other than the goat, was I had a lamb that was born during the cold snap, and the mama didn't want to nurse her, and so I had to bottle feed. And it sounds really sweet to bottle feed a lamb, and it was. She was cute. She was my house lamb, and I put diapers on her and kept her in the house. It took us 8 hours to warm her up. Her jaw was frozen solid, like you could not open her jaw. It was just ice, and I thought she was dead. And my daughter brought her back to life, and so she will never be butchered. Like hating her. I'm like, you can't keep escaping all the time. I'd go out in the morning to move them, and there she was over there. They never drift too far away from the herd, which is nice because they don't run off. But the fencing is to keep them. I'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so we go on this pattern there, and right after they've grazed, I have a 5-gallon bucket, actually like 4 or 5-gallon buckets. I go over the Knoxville seeds. Is that what it's called? I think. And also I get from green cover crops, green cover. I order cover crop seeds from them, and I get as diverse a seed. I like Knoxville because I can go out there and say, oh, what do you got today, and fill a shopping cart full of seed, and then I mix it all up in the bucket and I just throw it out there. So it's got corn, it's got sorghum, it's got turnips, it's got radishes, it's got all kinds of stuff. And my pasture grows, that's another nice thing. I can go out there, I don't do row crops, I don't do a garden. I'm too lazy for annual gardens. It's too much work. You have to weed them and all that. I go out in my pasture and pick peas and pull up a turnip, and it's really nice. But they like all this stuff. They like the broadleaf, they like the grasses. They'll even eat horse nettles and love it. Horse nettle is supposed to be toxic, and a lot of farmers don't want them there because, it's going to kill my animals. But my animals seem to know, like I've got Johnson grass, and knock on wood, nothing's happened yet because that's supposed to be toxic, especially after a drought. They're getting into a big stand of Johnson grass coming up, so I'm always a little worried because on my news feed they're always think, oh yeah, got to get rid of your Johnson grass because it's going to kill all your animals. And I don't know how to kill Johnson grass without killing everything and starting all over.
Johnson grass is our primary warm season grass here for finishing cattle.
It's a great summertime thing. So let's see what else. So I'm growing trees. Now I buy as many bare root trees as I can because I think the roots do much better. The trees grow fast and strong compared to potted. Not all potted plants are created equal. Dave was talking about that. You buy a lot of potted plants and the roots. If you get a white oak tree that's this tall, it should have 10 feet of root under that. If you go find a nursery somewhere that's going to sell you a white oak with 10-foot root system, it's not going to happen. It's going to be wrapped around like this and it's going to choke itself out. But how much does it cost for you to go out and collect acorns? And as you're walking, and there you go. It's going to grow. The squirrels don't do much better than that. And I was in a little aside, I was in a oak recovery group in California, and they were saying how to grow oaks. You got to spray Roundup in a 3-foot circle, kill everything, and then plant it there and build a cage. I'm like, that just doesn't sound like how nature does it. But what do I know?
That's the way the squirrels do it.
Yeah. So, so I'm rotating around every day, and this mimics what nature does, not what you see in a lot of, like I'm from California, and you go out there and you'll see the rolling grasslands, and you'll see cattle out there just having a nice life. But that's not natural, because natural is more like the Great Plains with herds of bison, with wolves herding them, constantly moving them. They didn't have time to sit in one place until they had eaten the grass down to nothing, which is what animals will do. They'll just destroy the soil, the life on the soil. If they're in one place, they'll eat all the good stuff to death, and all you'll have left is the weedy stuff. If you move them, they don't have time to be picky, because they know you're going to be moving them again. They're just going to, I mean, they know when I'm moving them. They'll start bellowing for me. My cow Pepper, if you ever want to see a beautiful cow, you need to come out to my place. I do farm tours anytime you want. She's the most beautiful cow in the world.
She's so cute.
Yeah. And she'll like, it's time to feed me, move me, come on. I can go down there. And what I do now, because she pushes, she'll go through the fence if I'm not fast enough, and she'll do what she wants to do. So I go take my scythe, and I scythe a Santa Claus load, big Santa Claus bag of fresh grass from my daughter's field, because she wants it mowed down instead of natural. So I get that nice grass, and I give her a big load of grass and distract her, and then I can move the fence without her like pushing her horns. Those horns don't feel too good. So, well, what else? So I'm moving them every day, sometimes twice a day. Lately I've been doing morning and evening. Same amount of movement, but I do, so I move a segment forward a day or at a time, and then I do that twice a day. So I'm actually moving my mobile paddock a third every day. Parasites, it takes them a few days to grow from the poot up into the grass. So if they're not on the same ground for longer than 3 days, you shouldn't be getting parasites from them. And then I rotate them around. It takes me 4 months to complete a cycle, which should minimize the parasite load when they come back. And what else with that? Oh, also having a flirt, so sheep parasites dead end in the cow, cow parasites dead end in the sheep. They don't share parasites, so if they ingest grass that has a parasite on it for sheep, the cow will kill that parasite in its gut. So all that reduces. I would ideally like to run chickens behind like Joel Salton does, but I've got some pretty steep areas and it's kind of hard to pull a chicken tractor up that. Also the netting keeps predators out. I've got coyotes, and so far I've not had any predators get in. I've seen a dog, I watched a dog, and it's wonderful to watch. They stick their nose right up to the fence, and then they're like, boom, they're gone. So, but the animals can get through if they want to. I had a video of my ram and my cow cavorting around, just running around having fun. And I posted it on Facebook, and somebody said, "You need to put that ram down. It's terrorizing that little calf." I'm like, that calf can flip that ram right over on its back. It can run right through that fence. It's done it before, so you don't know what you're talking about. Which happens a lot, right? When you've got livestock, you got somebody that thinks they know better than you about it. It's like, oh, whatever. I'm open to learning, but I'm not going to listen to that kind of stuff. So I've got trees, shrubs, vines, and cover crops, the high diversity cover crops. I try to get that as diverse as I can. I'm running them around, and the grass looks really good. You can see they're down right here now, and up here is lush and green, and then it gets browner as it gets closer to where they are. It comes back pretty nice, and then you get the spring growth of the late spring growth of the Johnson grass, and man, it just takes off. That Johnson grass will be this tall, and they love it when it's fresh. I did plant, Dave's not here, I did plant plums, and they seem to grow well, like invasively well. Like they have suckers that go everywhere in the pasture. I want them to stay nicely in here. It's not too bad because the animals will take care of it, kind of. But I also have blackberries that grow where they want to grow, and that is not as fun to move the flock through the herd through that. I like to wear shorts and flip-flops in my pasture, but I've run into hornets' nests in the ground, the brambles, all that stuff. It's much better to wear boots and jeans. Not to mention ticks. But all right. What else on this? Any questions as I go?
What cover crops do you use?
So it depends on the season, and so you have Gabe Brown is a really good guy to watch any of his videos. He's like a cover crop guru. He talks about warm season broadleaf and warm season grasses, cool season broadleaf and cool season grasses. You want to have a good mix of that. And a lot of times, the seed that I'm throwing out may not be appropriate for that season. It's okay because either birds will eat it or it'll grow in the appropriate season. It just sits there and waits. So I'm just trying to expand the seed bank as much as I can. Oh, goldenrods and asters, because I also have bees. And speaking of bees, November 18th we're having a workshop at Sustainable Future Center. If you're interested, look up.
SFC Knox Howell.
Huh?
SFC Knox Howell.
There you go. Or there's the Knoxville Region. It's a really comfort. Knoxville Region Lands Treatment-Free Beekeepers group on Facebook. We're going to be building frames for beehives, and then we'll have another one for making beehives. So having asters and goldenrod does not cause allergies. That's the ragweed that does that. But they attract a certain kind of wasp that actually attacks Japanese beetles. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of Japanese beetles, as pretty as they are. And that's another thing when you're starting trees in pasture. The pasture grasses hide a lot of the trees, and the Japanese beetles tend not to find them until the animals have grazed it down, and they go, ooh, look at that, there's an apple tree right there. Ooh, look at that, there's a grapevine right there. So I also, because I'm off-grid, I have access to my daughter's water, but her house is up here, and carrying 20 gallons of water down to the animals every day is tiring in 5-gallon buckets going down there. So I have a hay barn right here that collects, it's probably 8 feet by 15 feet, and that bit of roof I collect enough to fill, to overflow 2 IBC totes that I fill it, and I'm going to put a third out there. And I haven't, since I've done that, I haven't had to use any of her water, and the rainwater is nice. So, and then the winter, I don't have enough grass on my pasture to get through the winter without supplemental hay. And the first winter I bought chaff hay, which is a organic alfalfa that's somewhat marinated in molasses, and the animals just love it. But it's not cheap, and I was spending too much money doing that. So I bought myself a scythe, and I fill the hay barn, and I make 2 8 by 8 by 10 foot tall hay stacks, just from, so every morning, as soon as the sun's up, I'm out there cutting hay by hand, and going out there and flipping it and drying it and flipping it and drying it and putting it on the haystack, and they love that. Yes.
Do you side, just thinking about like parasites and why you're letting areas rest to prevent parasites and everything, can you scythe all of it, or are there
I don't
certain...
scythe their pasture, because
Yeah.
I don't want to get the parasites in it. I want to keep as much food there that they're going to eat down, because when they'll go through the winter, they'll eat it down pretty low, and then I add hay to them.
So you don't scythe anything that they walk on?
No.
Okay, it's completely different.
Well, I do scythe the brambles just to get them down.
Okay.
So I like scything because it's quiet instead of brush hogging, which is not quiet, and it's a lot cheaper to buy a scythe than it is a tractor and a brush hog, bush hog.
What do you scythe? I mean, what's in the field that you scythe? Is it the same as brush and
It's got grasses, it's got clovers, it's got, what's the blue flowered?
Chicory.
Chicory, it's got chicory, it's got all that, whatever's growing out there. It's got horse nettle, which is not great, but they seem to use it medicinally is my take on it. I'm just guessing, but they seem to, it seems like they can eat toxic plants as long as it's mixed in with all kinds of good stuff without ill effect.
And you dry it in the field, like you just let it lay in the field, so you pick some sunny days and you let it dry there, and then you move it.
Yes, I have to wait until there's like a 3-day run of no rain for it to dry out.
Have you played,
Yeah.
have you played around with tree fodder at all?
I have some. I feed them my favorite tree, which I hate to feed to the animals, but the animals love it, so I give them all the privet that they want. They get as much privet as they want. You don't want to feed them cherry branches. I think you can get away with fresh cherry leaves, but anything that's wilted, it can be severely toxic.
Any stone.
What's that?
Any stone
Yeah.
will turn toxic.
So if it's dry, it's okay. If it's fresh, it's okay. But if it's in that in-between wilty stage, it's not good. And I do have a lot of black cherry on the perimeters, so I kind of, they just seem to ignore it though. So at least none of them have died.
You thought about running pigs with the water?
We have, my daughter and son-in-law do pigs, but they run them in the hickory trees to help feed them, and they clear out. It's a joy to watch pigs eating multiflora rose, privet, and things like that. They just don't care about prickers at all. They'll just go in and tear it up. It's fun, and they taste really good. So the sheep are Katahdin, which you guys have. I got it from a local guy who's an attorney and has a bunch of sheep and cows. And I started with 5 sheep, 4 ewes and a ram named Ramsey. and original name. My new ram, because you never named your ram, did you? It's named Rambutan. I don't know if anybody's ever had a Rambutan, but they're really good. But anyway, so so that was 2 years ago, and then I ended up with 18 sheep container that I had for them. It was getting too much, and I had several people that said they wanted to buy some of my sheep, and then they did, but I did end up finding people that wanted them. It's amazing how quickly they lamb out, and so then I traded rams with him so that I get fresh genetics in there, and there's a whole community of us out there with Katahdins, and they're not, I don't think they're pure Katahdin, I think there's Dorper mixed in, but they're both hair sheep, they're both good with parasites, and they're good, they have good mothering instincts, and I butcher them myself. I'll have a workshop coming up next month to butcher one of our rams.
How do we find out?
It'll be on the Knoxville Regenerative Co-op or the East Tennessee and the East Tennessee Facebook group. I charge a whopping, it's real expensive because my skills are amazing. I charge $25 to feed you. Last time we had a pasture walk workshop and you were there. I had it catered by a local person that knows how to cook. She took some of my lamb and made kebabs, and we had tabbouleh, and oh my gosh, it was good stuff. So, yes, so I butcher them. I make it very personal. I use a knife and cut their throat, which sounds horrible, but I want it to be personal because I care about them, and I don't want to take it lightly. So, I'm grateful that I've got a son-in-law there who steps up. So I kill, and then he and I skin, and then he has more knowledge about breaking them down than I do. But and tying off the butthole, which is always the fun thing to do, especially on pigs. On goats, it's not so, or sheep, it's not so bad. Think of what else to tell you. So it doesn't cost me anything. Once the infrastructure was pretty cheap, right? The electric netting and the solar energizer was the most expensive thing. Then the shade structure, and it's light enough I can just pick it up and drag it every day. That doesn't cost hardly anything. And then I'm not buying hay. I bought hay from the farmers co-op, and they would hardly touch it. Really, they just did not like that hay. I'm not sure what it was. I know that hay production here is usually pretty heavily sprayed, and my hay is not sprayed ever, and it's a good mix. I don't just grow a certain kind of grass, which a lot of people want. Then the water's free. I just had to get the totes, which are $50 or $75 if you know where to go, which I do if you need totes. There's a winery in my town that will sell you for $50 or $75. It's been used once for wine. So
The 250-gallon IBCs?
Yeah. He doesn't have a lot of them, but he does sell them occasionally. So, and then the hay barn, which I was thinking would be a barn. It's on skids, so I can drag it around if I have to. But I don't use it as a barn, just fill up the hay. And it serves as a nice little habitat for a family of groundhogs.
So like, you must be an expert at sheep poop, right?
Oh yeah.
So like when you see clumping, do you get worried or?
No, with sheep?
Yeah, I raise sheep too, and like, generally you want the pellets, like rabbit pellets
Right.
almost, right?
Right.
But then it goes a little bit clumpy, like
Right.
now, and it happened like almost around the neighborhood with other shepherds too, at the same time. And I'm wondering, is that just a seasonal, like,
Honestly, I don't know.
Oh.
I get more worried when they start shooting green
Yeah.
diarrhea.
yeah, then it's
But,
barber pole worm and,
yeah, but that seemed to go away on its own. I didn't do anything but make sure they had clean water.
okay.
And lambs go through that a lot of times, I guess, and then grow out of it. I would just say too, if you have to bottle feed a baby, find somebody to do it for you and give it to them.
Yeah.
Be done with it, or just, I wouldn't go through that again. That was too much of a time commitment.
So you said 3.5 acres. What's the area that you scythe, and then what's the area that they live on?
So the 3.5 acres is what they live on, and I don't know how many acres my daughter has. I just side that side.
You scythe on your side, okay.
Yeah, she appreciates it, kind of. She'd rather it be mowed into a regular lawnish kind of field. But John, my son-in-law, doesn't have the time to mow acres all the time, and if you don't do it regularly, the grasses get really, like I mowed one time for them, and the Johnson grass was taller than I was on the lawnmower, and that's hard on the lawnmower, so it's easier to scythe it.
How many, so you have 3.5 acres, it's just the same that I have. It's like 80% beautiful, southern sloping. I'm in North Georgia, and I'm pretty fortunate. It's all
Yeah.
lovely stuff. And then about 20% is just a forest ditch. No, there's shade and a lot of Japanese grass. What is that called? Still grass, and black walnut and sweet gum. Kind of riparian ditch area, right?
Right.
So that's what I have for them. And I have now 6 pregnant ewes and 6 babe ewes that are not, and so I'm thinking if I had all of them pregnant at the same time, I could end up with 12 times, so it'd be 36. Is that gonna, is that survivable, or I'm importing?
I couldn't do that. That would be more than my pasture could handle with the way I operate.
I guess I'll let you know how it goes.
So I'd want to be selling and, looking at anybody that wants to buy lamb. Plus, you're in Georgia, I don't know, you take yours to a processing center that probably has a minimum amount of animals you bring in.
We usually take at least a dozen. I think next week we'll take 20 or something.
Yeah, okay. So what's the smallest amount that you've been able to take?
There's one really tiny processor up in Stone Mountain, Tennessee that they don't seem to be bothered
Okay.
by it, but it's basically a one-guy operation.
We got a couple of family size processors that'll take half a dozen or 30 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's what rams are good for, right? Rams are good. You want one ram to service the flock and the rest of them to eat. And I leave my rams in with a flirt. I don't fix any of them, so they're all intact.
Have you run into issues with knocking up young ewes though?
I had one ewe that was, yes, but it only affected one time.
And bottle feed, or it died?
It died. It was too long in the birth canal, and it came out. That was my only time I've lost an animal.
And it was a yearling. Like
Yeah.
the mom was a yearling?
Yeah, and the lamb was determined to die. It wouldn't nurse. I watched it sparking, literally. I could see the sparks coming off as it was going through the electric netting to just go out and die. And I brought it back, put it in a pen with the mom, and it managed to get out and get through the fence again.
It was literally going to die.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
My question is about bloating and the gases that, like, I'm pretty squeamish. So like I heard stories about, you gotta poke them in the gut and let the gas out. Is that something that you can alleviate with this type of
I've never had an
management?
issue with bloating. Have you had an issue with
We've
bloating?
lost 2 calves in my lifetime to bloating. Both times it was hungry cattle being put in on wet, rich lagoons.
Huh.
So, yeah, it's.
So it's environmental then, as much as,
Well, yeah, it is also about here. I mean, if
Yeah.
you've got way too much clover in your pasture, not enough diversity, and it's wet, and the animals are hungry, I think it's an issue otherwise.
right. Well,
But
that's,
you just have to know where to stick them with the knife, stand back.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what YouTube is great for. They can
Hey Bruce,
show you right.
are you running much of a mineral program or anything?
Oh yeah, I do mineral. Sorry, allergies. I buy a little pack of minerals from Premier One for sheep and goats, and mix it in with a 5-gallon bucket of salt from the farmer's co-op, and then give that to them. Not every day because it's a pain, because the humidity just makes it into a mess. So when I put it out, they get all excited, go there and finish it up, and I have to make sure I have plenty of water. They don't need as much water when it's cooler. I go like 10 gallons a day is fine. And when it's hotter, 20 gallons a day. But pepper will suck down 5 gallons of water in one, should just, it's gone. And it's amazing how much they can drink.
I got the equip program to pay for one of those 2-ball things,
What's that?
like a 2-ball waterer,
Oh.
automatic, and running the pipe out.
Yeah,
They
but you have
pay-
to have a water source for that.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I also live off-grid and in a tiny house, 200 square foot, and I can tell you if you were thinking, composting toilets, that sounds gross. Now, how many of you have been to my place? A few of you. And it doesn't smell like poop, and it's literally, I've got my bed here and toilet's right there. And it works really well, and it's just a 5-gallon bucket with a frame to hold up the toilet seat, and another 5-gallon bucket with shavings in it. And
Smells great.
it's awesome. And then I have a big, 4-foot round container to put the dump stuff in, and put a bucket or 2 of wood chips in. And in a year, when it fills up, I wait a year, and then it's really good, rich compost. Yes, sir.
You can also get volunteer tomato plants.
Yes.
That's done.
And
And you know,
squash.
that's from last year, from July usually.
Yeah, I started putting,
But what I've tried to do, and I've